This podcast contains explicit language and content and is for mature audiences only.
Hey, you teenagers out there. If you're under 18, this show is more for your parents. So now that you have that mental picture stuck in your head, put some music on and get back to doing your homework.
We are a longtime married couple who's decided to chronicle our personal adventures and share our sex-positive discussions as we navigate our way through the swinging lifestyle.
Care to join us?
Hello everyone, I'm Mr. Jones.
And I'm Mrs. Jones, and we want to welcome you to episode 27 of the We Got a Thing podcast. This is a bonus episode.
Yes, a bonus episode.
Yes.
And for those of you who don't know, a couple of times a year, 2 or 3 times a year, we'll do an extra podcast. So this is not in place of a regular podcast. And it's usually a conversation with somebody that we find or that we meet and we think is interesting and we want to.
This one wasn't planned, but we just couldn't resist. We met the greatest couple when we were at Desire last week.
Yeah, and I'm glad that we got to use our recorder. We take it everywhere we go, and then we never use it.
I know.
And the way the vacation was going, you know, we said, we're going to definitely podcast, and then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and, you know, the way the week was going, I thought we were just going to leave it in the safe.
Yep. And a couple of the couples that we wanted to podcast with ended up, you know, leaving midweek, and then we just ran out of time. And
yeah.
So, but we did meet an awesome couple.
Mm-hmm. Their
names are Jay and Nathan, and they're from Canada. And they have the most interesting story, and that's why we just couldn't resist. We had to find time to sit down and record with them, and we're so glad we did.
Yeah. Ironically, at our meet and greet at Naughty in New Orleans, we met 2 of our listeners who were also
in the same situation.
Yeah,
yes.
And they were in an arranged marriage too. And we wanted to talk to them more, but Naughty in New Orleans was so daggone crazy this year, we never got the time to do that.
Well, and you would lose people, and then when you would run into them, we had a deadline. We were doing a workshop or whatever, and so yeah, we never got to sit down with the Indian couple that came to our meet and greet that had the arranged marriage story to tell us. We heard, you know, the overview of it, but I would have loved to have learned more about it. So when we were at Desire last week, we saw a couple, and we kind of go over this during our interview with them, but the very first day, we got there on a Saturday, and the foam party's at 2:00. So we're in the pool, batting around beach balls during the foam party, and I saw this couple, and they're such a striking couple. They're just both really attractive and really outgoing, and I saw them, and I remembered them from when we were there last year. So I went up to them and said, I don't know if you remember me, but I definitely remember meeting you guys last year. So we, just kind of acknowledged each other. And then after the foam party, we ended up talking to them a little bit.
Yeah. And a little bit about them. I think everybody in the resort knew who they were.
Yes.
If you've been to Pearl before, there's right next to the pool, there's a pathway that leads to Aphrodite, the restaurant, and to the restrooms. And,
yeah, the bathroom, that's kind of important.
And everyone in the whole resort during the day goes by that. And so they get up early, and strategically they choose those first 2 chairs right at that intersection. And they're very social. As you mentioned, they're very attractive. And they just like meeting people. And they're just such a joyful couple, and they're very pleasant. And we probably talked to them for about 45 minutes. One thing that you'll notice is we started the recording on our balcony, and
because we had an awesome room. We had a room overlooking like the hot tub in the forefront, and then you could see the activity, the active side of the pool, and then you could see the ocean.
Right.
So we had a beautiful view on our balcony.
Yeah, and when we started the recording, they had music playing in the background, which was fine. But then Marco got on the microphone a few minutes in and wouldn't shut up. So hang in there.
They were playing a game, honey.
Because there's 2 or 3 minutes of where it gets kind of loud, but then we decide to move inside. So the audio quality gets better once we move inside. So hang in there. So without further ado, here are our friends Jay and Nathan, and our conversation with them at Desire Pearl. So we're with our friends, Jay and Nathan at Desired Pearl. And I think we met you guys, I'm not sure how much we talked to you last year, but we definitely remember you from our trip back.
I saw them during the foam party the first day we got here, and I remembered that from last year.
Yes, because Nathan has such a great personality, and Jay is just so strikingly beautiful.
I was going to say, and they're both kind of sexy.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Very memorable.
Yeah, and so we've got to know them really well this week, and they have a really interesting story to tell, and a lot of our listeners are either thinking about the lifestyle or are interested in Pearl, and we just think you guys have a really cool story, so we thought we would just ask you some questions. So before we go any further, why don't you introduce yourselves to whatever you're comfortable saying so that people get an idea of who you are and where you're from.
Oh, my name is Jay. No, sorry. My name is Nathan, my lovely wife Jay, and we are from Edmonton, Canada. We were born and brought up in, just as Mr. and Mrs. Jones said a few moments ago, we were born and brought up in India. We had an arranged marriage, and 22 years later, here we find ourselves in lovely Desire Pearl, socializing with the most wonderful group of people you could ever meet.
Absolutely.
Yes, it is.
People in the lifestyle, people like Mr. and Mrs. Jones.
And this is our fifth visit to the Pearl.
Third?
Fifth visit.
Fifth?
Time, yeah.
Okay.
Us too.
Yeah.
That's nice.
So how did you get from India to Canada?
We worked in the Philippines for 10 years, and then after that we decided to migrate to Canada for economic or work-related reasons. And it was not until 3 years ago that we had a chat about coming down to Desire Pearl.
Who brought that up?
Yeah, whose idea was it?
That's Nathan's idea. So he saw this on the website, he suggested it. So I said, okay, let's go and try for one time. We tried it. On day one, I started liking it.
Oh, good.
Yeah. And in fact, we were planning for the second trip.
Right.
Oh, while you were here the first time, you started planning for the second time
Yeah,
back? Yeah.
On the first day.
Yeah. On the first day.
Yeah.
Was it difficult for you to take your top off or your bottoms off?
Yeah, first time I had some issues taking off my clothes. I was there, but the people around me, they made it so comfortable. So on the second time I started taking out my clothes. I'm fine.
Yeah.
I'm comfortable now.
I must clarify though that the first time that she didn't take her tops off
Because
was nothing to do with modesty reasons.
well, nothing to do with that one. I was not comfortable removing it because I was waiting for my boobs job to be done. That's the only reason. Other than that, absolutely no.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm sure you guys can tell that now her boobs look way more amazing than what you can probably imagine they look
The
like
only thing
back
I can
then.
say
It would
is
be
that they...
tragic to cover them up now.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you guys have like a strategic location that you always sit in your chairs. You're probably in the most popular intersection in the whole resort, and I know you probably did this intentionally.
No doubt.
So those of you who have been here before, right when you go down the steps into Aphrodite or to the men's room, ladies' room from the pool, every single person has to go by where you sit every day. Now, was that an accident or you do that on
It's an
purpose?
accident.
It is an absolute accident. It's just that Victor and
So usually we wake up early in the morning. We will be the first person to go there. So always he will get that place.
Right.
Other
Okay.
than that, it's nothing.
Okay,
Okay.
if you say so.
Yeah. So I have to ask you, Jay, about an incident that occurred while we were playing basketball this morning.
Yeah.
Because, Desire, normally the people here are really great, really easygoing. And we played basketball today, and Jay was our star. She scored most of the points on the whole team. And so the rule in the basketball game is that the guys are not allowed to touch the women.
Yeah.
And the women are allowed to touch the men, and the women are allowed to touch the other women. So that's the way it's always been,
Correct.
and it's sexy fun.
Yes.
Okay, so what happened at your end of the pool?
You know what happened? She was a bit aggressive. She was pushing me a lot, even though the ball was on the other side of the court. I told her not to push. When the ball comes, you do that when you're protected.
Right.
And she said, no, I have to, I'm offensing on the offense side, so I have to do it. So when the ball comes here, you do it. And she did it 2 times, and she pushed my hat, and she was so aggressive, I kept quiet. When the ball came, it went to other guy, I just pushed him and took the ball, and she came out and she said, "You are not touching my man."
Oh.
So that I could not take it. I
Yeah.
said,
And
then
that-
you should get out of the pool.
Yes.
You are not supposed to be here.
That's
Right.
right.
And
And
that's
there is nothing personal here. We are all going to have fun.
Right.
Right.
But you cannot take it personal. You are not touching my man.
Yeah.
Then I said no. And she was aggressive in the volleyball court.
Yeah.
I was not there.
Yeah.
But I saw that.
Yeah.
and that's because we've had the most wonderful introduction to what the lifestyle is, isn't, what it should be, and what it shouldn't be.
Right.
We were so happy to meet a wonderful group of people, just like yourselves, when we came here for the first time, who gave us an introduction to what it's supposed to be and what it's not supposed to be, what you can do and what you can't do.
That's right.
And I'm assuming, Jay, that what you're saying is contradictory to everything that we learned on our first trip,
Yeah.
and we've pretty much held as gospel,
Right.
that you do not touch someone else without the spouse's permission, so on and so forth. So I'm assuming that that's what probably offended Jay, that
Yeah.
there was an assumption that she didn't know what lifestyle 101 was all about.
And I'm allowed to do that. In the water polo, I can go and grab, I can do whatever I can
Right.
just to get the ball. But
Right.
she cannot say that you are not supposed to touch my man or something like that. And I
Right.
wasn't intentionally trying to touch him. I just
Right.
I'm
Well, just
Right.
before the game started, the referee, Emily, said, "Okay, here are the rules."
yeah.
And so clearly, I think though what happened is everyone else that was playing sensed that couple needed to get out of the pool because they were the ones that were really having the struggle or the issue and
Yeah,
causing
and
the
it's
drama.
the 5th time I'm here, and every time when I come here, I play water polo
Yes.
and volleyball.
Yeah.
So it's not the first day for me.
And I think, just like yourself, although we're not as experienced as you guys are, we can kind of find out, perceive, if you will, about the kind of, what's the word, help me here, dynamics
Yes.
Yes.
between couples,
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
right? And what they are into and what they're not into.
Yeah.
It's not rocket science, and it's pretty obvious.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, most people have a sensitivity to what's going on, and if you start to feel uncomfortable, really what you should do is look around to see how other
Exactly.
people are behaving,
And that's how we learn.
and then realize, oh, wait a minute, maybe I'm in over my head here. If I'm having a problem with this, maybe we should excuse ourselves until I figure out what's going on. But there was a little bit of a scene, and then they got out, and then the rest of us had a great time playing basketball. Then there was something that happened. We'll talk about. Go back to you guys in a minute. In the hot tub the other night, you know.
Oh, there was a very aggressive gentleman in the hot tub one afternoon, and he was harmless, but he was overly friendly, and he was by himself. His wife was taking a nap, and he was just walking around touching all the women, and he was introducing himself, but it was uncomfortable.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So there were 3 ladies, myself, and then 2 other ladies were just talking, and he had come up to 3 of us. Well, I didn't even have to say anything because one of the other ladies, she kind of pushed him and sat him down on the center circle of the hot tub where there's a bench.
Wow.
And she said, "Let me tell you about the lifestyle." She said, "First of all, where is your wife? Because you should not be in this hot tub without your wife."
Eggs. Perfect.
And then she said, "Second of all, you don't touch me without asking me if it's okay first." And I mean, she just went on. She had like 5 things.
She had her fingers in his face. Going,
Yeah.
First of all,
She was
second
like-
of all,
she was touching her index finger to his nose, and I mean, she was laughing and being friendly as she said it, but
Yeah.
she was serious. And he actually responded very positively to it.
Right.
So, and he apologized and got out of the hot tub.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So overall, I guess for the resort, you rarely see things like these happen. But when
Right.
something like this does happen, either the other guests jump in, or there's some sort of correction. And a lot of times it's not from security, and it comes. Actually, it's more effective if it comes from another woman or another man to say, "Wait a minute, that's not how we treat ladies here, or that's not how we, roll here." So I was just very fascinated by that.
For the most part, people that you meet here are the most wonderful people that you could meet.
Very caring people.
Yes.
Very caring, very friendly people. You could have the most open conversations with about anything that you care to talk about. But you're right. You always run into the one rogue person on every trip who hasn't gotten the memo about what is okay and what is not okay.
Right.
Right. Not sure. How long do you think they're going to go on with
I
this?
think it's for a long day. If you want, you can sit inside.
Okay, we had to come inside the room because there was some partying going on at the pool. We were out on our balcony overlooking the jacuzzi.
Yeah, who says Pearl is boring?
Yeah.
There's a lot going on out there.
Yeah, it's quite a party crowd this week. Anyway, so that's a little bit about Desire and what's been going on. Really like to get back to you guys, and as an American who's not real worldly, when I hear the term arranged marriage, I'm thinking that, somebody's got a gun to my head and taking me, to the altar, and I've never seen this woman before, and then you pull the curtain up and, and then you're forced to get married, and then you have to go try to figure out how this is going to work. And so please educate me on what you experienced.
That's a wonderful question that you asked. Like we said, we were born and brought up in India, and as with anything else in India, there's a lot of flavors to any particular social aspect, and that not just includes something like education or the arranged marriage. So you have different flavors of the arranged marriage. You have one, Mr. Jones, like you just said, about being led up to the altar with a gun pointed to your head about and saying that you've got to marry this woman. Yeah, sure, that happens. But you also have the other end of the spectrum where what Jay and I like to refer to as the old-fashioned version of eHarmony. when people like ourselves didn't have a chance to get introduced to each other thanks to wonderful internet service like eHarmony. So how it would work, it would be our parents would introduce ourselves to each other, and the important thing we'd like your listeners to realize is the fact that the woman has the first right of refusal. Is that a sense that makes sense to you?
Yes.
A term that makes sense to you guys? Yeah.
Yeah.
So if she said no, this marriage wouldn't have happened. But she did say yes, so we did have a marriage which is, I'm sure, very unlike the ones that you two had.
I'm sorry. So when you had a choice and you said yes, but what was the period of time from when you first were introduced?
I met him end of October, and we got married in April.
Okay.
So
Okay.
we had a few months to date. And
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So
So-
you dated for a few months, then you made the decision as to whether you wanted to.
No.
No.
We on the day we met each other, we liked each other, and we say, "Here, I would like to marry him."
Oh, okay.
Okay, and then during that time, any time I could have said, "No, I'm not interested."
I changed my mind.
I changed
Changed
because
my
I
mind, yeah.
Yeah.
I dealt with him. I didn't like him. I could have stopped it.
Okay.
So I had that option.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I can vouch for the fact that what she says is absolutely true. Her family wouldn't have forced this on her, neither would have my family. But we met and socialized with each other for 6 months, and then we got married. So in a way, we got married and then we fell in love.
Yeah.
We are in Pearl now.
And here we are. So I think we've done quite well for ourselves.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, isn't that true for all of us to some degree, though? I mean, you got married and then you fell in love. Well, I think when you only know each other for a short period of time and you do decide to spend the rest of your lives together, as time goes on, doesn't that love deepen and deepen and deepen?
Yeah. So in our case, we knew each other 6 months. No, not 6 months, 4 months.
Yeah, 4 months.
And before I proposed, so it was the same timeline.
Yeah.
And at that point in time, there was chemistry, there was, physical attraction, there was hormones, all of that really up front, and we mistaken that for love a lot of times. But then once you get into it, and a year goes by, and I realized all of that stuff fades away, and you're left with the person that you're. And in a way, it is very similar. We just call it something different.
Right.
But the freedoms are still there. You had a choice to say no. You had a choice to say no. So this idea that an arranged marriage is something so foreign to the way that we work. I love the thing about the eHarmony, because that's exactly what it sounds like. You put your name in the hat. Here's my profile. You have a representative and a family member that's vouching for you and helping to bring you together, and that's really interesting.
So what was that time like from October to April? I mean, were you able to go out on dates like we think of dates here now?
Yeah, I was like, we both were staying like in 10 hours apart in a place. So he used to come every month. We go out.
Okay.
We go out and do some shopping. We go for lunch or dinner. But we are not allowed to have sex before marriage.
Right.
Okay. That's what I was hinting at. I just didn't want to ask.
No, it's absolutely okay if you did ask.
Okay.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, and Jay, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think it's accurate to say that we were not allowed to have sex.
Yeah.
It was something that I think we both decided not to do.
Okay.
And therefore, if we had decided to have sex, I think it would have been fine.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Is that right?
Yeah. So then, how do we get from there to desire? And this is a question that we ask everybody that you meet here, like in the pool, like, where are you from? Are you in the lifestyle? Who was the one that found desire? How did you get here? Who brought this up? So you've been married for 22 years. You have beautiful children. How many?
Two daughters.
Two daughters.
And they are what age?
21 and 18.
21 and 18. And so here you are at Desire.
Yeah.
Tell us, like, whose idea was this? How did you find out about it? How did that conversation go?
Well, you want to go? Or?
No, you go.
All right.
You started it, so
I don't think she's complaining.
I know, she's smiling right
There
now.
you go.
Yeah.
So I think it was a light-hearted conversation we had on a cold Edmonton evening when it was probably 30 below zero, a glass of wine in front of the fireplace. And I said, sweetheart, I love you. And we Hindus believe in life after this life. There's going to be another life after this, and I'd like to marry you. And she says, well, I love you too, but in the next life I probably want some variety, so I'm going to get married to someone else. And I said, well, that's a good idea, and I think I know where you're coming from, but you can do that in this life, you know that, right? You could go down to a place called Pearl. So I said, tell me about it. And so we pulled out the laptop and we had a chat.
So you had already discovered Desire when you brought this up?
He went through like few websites, like the one in Hido, Desire, the other one, and then he thought Desire is more classic.
Okay.
So he showed all the websites, all those stuff to me.
So when you found Desire, did you understand the difference between clothing optional and lifestyle?
We absolutely did.
Okay.
And she said, well, you know what? I'll give it a shot. I'll try it once. We'll go there and see what it's all about. And if I like it, we'll go there again. And if I don't like it, we'll not. So I said, yeah, that's a fair proposition. So we came here and we tried it for the first time in February of 2014, I believe it was. We liked it. So here we are.
Wow. So was there any? So how would you describe it when when you're in the pool and people come up to you and they say, are you in the lifestyle? Or how would you describe what your thing is? How do you, when people ask you that question, how do you respond?
I say that depends. I
Okay.
always say that.
Situational, yeah.
Situational.
Okay.
We like, and if it is going to work for us, we say yes.
Okay. Yeah.
And I think, Jay, you should correct me if I'm wrong. Sometimes we wish more people would come up to us and ask us that question. There is such a thing as stereotype,
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
and I don't fault anyone for falling prey to that trait, if you will. Everyone's got their stereotypes about a different culture, and so we have this conversation over dinner at Pearl, and we say, hey, do you think perhaps that those people fell prey to the stereotype and said, oh, this couple is probably here just for the nudity or the clothing optional aspect of it? Do you think they wanted to ask us if we were in the lifestyle? Do you wish they had asked you that question? So that is a factor. We both wish that more people asked us that question. Not that we are overly worried about the fact that some people don't, but there is that aspect to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, in Calgary, or is that or Edmonton?
Edmonton.
Edmonton. In Edmonton, what is the population and the culture of people from India, or as you said, you were from Irish. What is it like there, and how do you compare that to Pearl? Because you still must have some sort of stereotyping going on at home, right? So how is that better or worse or different, or is it than Pearl?
Oh, that's an excellent question. We do not visit any of the lifestyle clubs in Edmonton.
Okay.
We've never been there, and I think, and there's nothing wrong with the lifestyle clubs in Edmonton.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that we believe that it's not for us.
Mm-hmm.
As in any other relationship, I'm sure it's the right thing for the guy to do, to give more importance to what the woman thinks, and she believes that if at all we did take part in any lifestyle kind of activity, it would be here at Pearl.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So we've never stepped into any lifestyle club in Edmonton.
Okay.
And I think the most we've done is gone and met Mike and Holly when they came down for the Taboo show, and that's about it.
Yeah.
Okay. You mean in Edmonton?
Yeah, they
That's
came
right.
to Edmonton.
But you're coming here a couple times a year,
Yeah.
it sounds like, right? Okay.
We'd like to come here more often.
So would you be comfortable talking about, maybe without being very specific, but like describe a positive encounter that you might have had with a couple here, and what was that like?
Don't mention
Oh,
Right,
okay.
right.
Yeah. We must start off by saying that every couple we've interacted with are the most
Wonderful.
wonderful people we've met.
Uh-huh.
We've come to realize, and I'm sure Mr. and Mrs. Jones, you know this way better than we do, that this lifestyle thing is not easy,
Right.
Yeah.
because there's not just one-way connection to be made, but it's got to be 4 ways.
Yes.
And there's all kinds of permutation combinations that could go wrong. And if you do not hit it off with a couple, it's not because any one person was not the most wonderful person you could meet.
Mhm.
I mean, we've met dozens of couples we've had to say a polite no to, and that's not because they weren't the nicest people we'd meet. be delighted to have dinner with them. We'd be delighted to socialize with them, but it's difficult.
Yeah.
So, having gotten that disclaimer out of the way, we must say that we haven't had too many experiences, and that's because of the old saying that I'm sure you guys have, that you do not take one for the team,
That's right.
and unless every person in the relationship feels comfortable, you do not do it. So we haven't had too many interactions, or we haven't had as many interactions that we perhaps like. But we did have a wonderful friendship with a couple we met, I believe it was August of 2014. And the interesting thing is that we were rookies back then, and we had gotten a wonderful introduction to the rules from good people like yourself about the fact that it was okay to say no to something that you didn't quite agree to. And this couple was into the woman-on-woman interaction, and my wife wasn't. And we told them that. And we left it at that, and the next day evening they did approach us at the disco and said, would you like to go down to the hot tub with us? So we did. And so I'm proud to say, or rather we are proud to say, that we did flip a vanilla couple into what's considered a soft swap, but it still is a flip, and that's pretty much the.
But we had a wonderful time till morning at 4 o'clock.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
So then after that, though, how about your conversations with each other after that? How about you have this idea and you talk about what this might feel like and what it might do for your relationship and how fun it might be. But when you have the experience and then it's real, it's not a fantasy anymore, and then you get in the plane and you go back home, what was your conversation like?
Like for the next 2-3 months, we were talking about them. We were talking about everything, like what we did, how she laughed, what I did, all this, everything we were talking, and we were relishing.
So it was a good experience.
A very good experience.
And then you continued to talk about that, and it, I imagine, energized your relationship.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It certainly did.
Yeah.
We call it reconnection sex. After you have an encounter with somebody, and that's always the best sex.
Yeah. And you meet a couple like that, and you can really have a good experience.
Yeah.
So that's fantastic. So what else do we want to talk about for desire? Do we want to?
So have you always come to Desire Pearl, or have you been to Riviera Maya and stayed there?
We stayed there for 2 nights the last time we were here. We did like it. Would we go back there again? Perhaps. But it's about choices and opinions, perceptions, which are not altogether logical. So for us, I think this place does it more than Desire Riviera Maya, which is, I'm sure, a wonderful place to visit and stay.
But you just went to Desire Riviera Maya yesterday, right?
Yes,
We did.
On a day pass.
On a day pass.
Yes. And what was going on there yesterday?
The reason we decided to go there is, like anything else in the lifestyle, it's all about variety and different options and different choices. So we said, we've met a wonderful group of people here, so let's go there and meet another wonderful group of people there. But like someone pointed out to us this morning, you go there and you don't see too many familiar faces. And here's the thing that I think we should mention. We weren't born and brought up in North America. So sometimes we think and we feel that perhaps our social skills, though they might not be awkward, they're pretty much up to par. There are sometimes moments when we feel like we don't have the skills or the guts to walk up to
Comfortable.
to walk up to a couple
And
who we think looks great and say, "Hey guys, would you like to have dinner with us?"
Mhm.
Or, talk about something else for a few minutes before we come up to that question.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times we say, "Hey, you know what? Let's wait for some other couple to come up and approach us and make the conversation."
Like we did.
It was like I did. I scored that dinner invitation.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, but I saw them and I said, we know them. We
Right.
met him. When did we meet them here before?
Right, and then I fought my way through to the phone to go
Yes, yeah.
to go meet them.
But I will say, just to give you some feedback, and we watch you. You know everybody here.
yeah, everybody says he's the mayor of that
Yeah.
Yes.
Everybody knows Nathan because he's got this personality, and everyone knows who Jay is because she's just strikingly beautiful.
Yes.
And she's very intelligent once you start to talk with her, and you guys make such a dynamic couple. And we had, I don't know, I think other people hadn't even mentioned that to us about, well, there's Jay.
Nice of them.
You know, they have such a great personality. They're such a great couple. So the reason I'm telling you this is because a lot of times, to your point about us having a perception of how socially adept we are or what other people are thinking of us, and we have this idea of what that might be. And one of the things that we like to do is that when we have the pleasure of playing with another couple, and especially at Pearl, when you wake up the next morning and there they are at breakfast, we like to reconnect and say, okay, what was your conversation like after we left the room? And all the time people have been willing to share that experience because that's the reality. What we thought they may have been thinking or experiences is oftentimes completely different, and that helps us to understand that everybody has these ideas that they're either socially awkward or that I wonder if this person was attracted to me, or I wonder if I did something they didn't like. And so, just to give you that feedback, you guys are you have this personality.
Well, Mr. Jones and I are fortunate in that we live near Washington, D.C. It's a very multicultural community. So we don't really have these perceptions of stereotypes because we interact with all types of people all day long. But we do also understand that a lot of our listeners and a lot of people here at Pearl are from areas of the country where it's not so multicultural. So it's just, we really appreciate you talking to us so that people that don't have the experience of those types of multicultural interactions hear your perspective.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
You're right. While you do talk rightly so about people from different parts of the United States or Canada, where they have had the option of interacting with a multicultural society, the fact remains, Mrs. Jones, that we are one of the few couples you'd meet here that were born and brought up in India.
True, true.
So it does take that point of view to a completely different level. And one of the things that I think we had great fun talking about or thinking about or doing on one of those interactions with that wonderful couple we met a couple of years ago was the fact that we enjoyed taking a look at the expression on the faces of people that walked by our bed,
Ah, yes.
by our bed, by the
Next
side
day
of
how
the
they-
hot
yeah.
tub.
And the next day, how they interacted with us, they came voluntarily and say, "Hey Jay, how are you? How is it going?" Blah blah. Artificially, they came and talked to us.
Right. So, if I may elaborate on what you were saying, so you could tell that here was pretty much most of the resort that had said, "Yep, okay, these people are here. They're good that they're here to having a good time. They're probably in this for the nudity part or whatever." And I'm just imagining this stuff, but I could tell by the look on their faces when they walked past on our bed and saw us playing with another couple. We could hear the sound of their jaw hitting the ground. Right? And what reinforced that opinion was the fact that, like Jay just said a few moments ago, people that hadn't taken the pains of coming and talking to us the previous day or the day before that would come up to us and strike up a conversation. And we're not rocket scientists, but you can tell that, something had changed in the last 24 hours, their perception of what they thought we were. Nothing wrong with that. We had a few giggles and
Sure.
laughed to ourselves about that.
Sure. And I mean, we've had an experience with an interracial experience, and what I found really visually stimulating is the contrast in the skin colors when we were in bed with them, because I'm not used to seeing that. It was not anything that was positive or negative. It was just a striking contrast. Okay, as a middle-aged white guy, it was just very new to me. And coming out of that, that's just one thing that I remember. But we still, they're really good friends of ours, and it was just something that I pulled away from the experience, with just seeing that difference.
I know.
Yeah. So what we learned is, people are people, and we've had people from all over the world. A couple of them email us and say, like one couple was from Korea. I said, "Hey, could you please tell us? Do you know anybody else in the lifestyle that's Korean?"
They wanted to come here,
Yeah.
and they were concerned that they wouldn't feel accepted
Yeah.
if they came here.
Yeah. Right.
But in Paul,
Yeah.
usually most of them they accept,
Yes.
Yes. Right.
based on my experience.
Right. If I may elaborate a little bit on that. The first time we walked in here, and we were checking in the lobby, and we looked at the lobby bar, and we saw a few
Beautiful.
extremely well-dressed women. We had a conversation amongst ourselves. Oh my God, what have we walked into? Do you think we'd be accepted here? So a few moments later, we go change in our rooms, come back to the lobby, and then you realize that you are in a resort with the most accepting, for the most part,
Yes.
accepting group of people, and we've never felt anything other than welcomed here. And but that said, of course, we've been here 6 times now, so someone was saying, "What, I'm the mayor of this place?" I don't think so.
Yeah.
But I think we've been here enough number of times to be able to handle the odd personality that thinks you don't belong here. We know exactly how to handle that.
Yes.
Well, and I to give you some more feedback, we were talking about this with a couple of friends we were with last night, that you spend all day, and for the most part when you're in the pool, nobody has clothes on, but when you dress for dinner, and the woman adds clothes, sometimes they become more sexy, when they add clothes. And coming into a resort where you may be in a minority, and the type of things that you wear may not be similar to corsets or lingerie or things. I have to say, you walked out, Jay, the other night, in
Sari,
this
yeah.
beautiful white,
Sari.
what's it called?
Sari.
Sari. And it covered a lot of your body,
Yes,
but it was so sexy.
Thank you.
And I think it was because you're so comfortable
Yeah.
being in that sort of dress.
Exactly.
And because you were comfortable, you were confident. And as you're confident, you just exude,
Exactly,
this beauty. And I just watched people like double take when they saw you.
Yes,
I was like,
they were.
Oh my gosh, that was just a beautiful dress. So to your point, I think when you come here, you don't necessarily have to dress the way that other people dress. So,
Well, she does for most evenings. There's nothing wrong mixing it up.
Yeah.
And
I'm comfortable wearing this as well as that.
Right.
So I thought there is variety, why not?
yeah, well,
Yeah.
you can pull off just about any kind of.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. So how has this trip been compared to others? And you've been here, what, 4 or 5 days now?
Yeah, we've been here for 6.
Yeah.
It's nice,
Yeah.
as always.
Yeah. Good. What else do we need to?
Well, I would say that we're probably down to a snapshot.
Yeah, so I know that
Anything memorable happened. It could happen, something that happened to you, something that you just have observed.
Let me
throughout
give
the
you an
resort.
example. So at the end of our podcast, we do something called a snapshot, and Mrs. Jones and I talk about an experience, a lifestyle or not experience that we've had in the past month since we last podcasted that just stands out. So let me give you an example. Like me seeing you, Jay, in that white dress. That's a visual that I will carry with me because it was just very striking. And just a very quick, yeah, there was no conversation except for I, of course, came up to you and had to give you a hug. But anyway, that's something that just in that quick of a moment, a glimpse, and something that I will remember. So that's a snapshot. Do you, thinking back over the past few days, or even a past trip here, is there something like that that stands out to either one of you, either at the pool or the hot tub, or at the...
To me, the way they decorate the bed yesterday when I came, it was so classy. That's other than that, nothing.
Oh, so like
Yeah,
the towel animals
Yeah,
on the
the-
bed.
The little animals are cute. Did you have like hearts?
Yes, we
did
Lot of
too.
rose petals.
Yes.
And, yeah. it
Yeah.
was
So
amazing.
romantic.
Very romantic.
Yes.
Other than that,
Other than that,
what else?
I mean, we've had a lot to say, I think, about most of the other questions, but on this one, I think we're drawing a blank.
Okay.
I
You
mean,
know what it is? You haven't experienced your snapshot yet. You still have 3 days.
Okay, so we'll let you come back to
That's
it.
right.
that is a very good point, because one of our experiences is the fact that we sometimes wish something more exciting happens, and then a couple of days goes by when you think nothing's happened, and then it changes in a moment.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's what happened when we met those couple 2 years ago.
Yeah.
We had dinner in the terrace, nothing happened. We came here. And
Yeah, that's usually what happens. I mean, all of a sudden, it's just the right setting with the right people, and there you go.
So, in closing, I guess, if you were to, and you're going to be talking to a lot of people who are listening that have never been to Pearl before. You've experienced the fears and the anxiety of coming down here and not knowing what to expect. So, from your unique place in life and what you've been through and where you're coming from culturally, what would you share to people who have not been here, who are thinking about coming to Pearl?
This is something I'm sure people from different cultural backgrounds can relate to. Do not consider coming here if you're not in a very secure relationship.
Ooh.
But if you are in a secure relationship and you are considering, correct me if I'm wrong here,
Exactly.
if you're considering taking a first step in the lifestyle, this is a fantastic place,
Yeah.
because like one of our mentors mentioned to us, and these are people that you, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, know well, it's between the ears more than it is between the legs.
Yes.
This place has a lot of charms and beauty that brings out the romantic side in you. So if you are considering it, please go ahead and take that step. Like they say, for those that have been here, no explanation is necessary. But for those that have not, no explanation is possible.
I like that. I like that.
Very good.
So, if any of your listeners are thinking about coming here and you're in a secure relationship and you've had good communication between yourselves, take it from a couple that were born into a very different, if you will, cultural background, that have come here and had a great time. It's the right thing to do. But if you're trying to come here to fix your marital problems or If you and your spouse do not have the most secure of relationships, trust us, we've seen a few rookies that have come here and made problems worse for themselves.
Yes.
Yeah, so to bring the whole thing full circle back to the basketball game, I believe what we experienced this morning was exactly what you just stated. I believe that there's a couple who are here for the wrong reasons at the wrong time, and what that does is everyone who observes that, they're going to be like persona non grata, hands off. Because why would you want to take a risk and introduce yourself to a couple who obviously aren't as comfortable as a lot of other people here? So maybe I'm being judgmental, I don't know, but that was my
You're absolutely right. Most people are judgmental. There's nothing wrong with that. You do watch the body language between other couples, and you might not voice it openly, but come on, everybody is drawing some conclusion and having a conversation between themselves about what they think about Jay and Nathan or Mr. and Mrs. Jones. And one of the things that the first few people we met here told us was the fact that if you do not carry yourself well and do things that are not acceptable in this resort, news travels fast.
Oh,
And I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
In fact, it's good.
No, right. Well, thank you both for taking time out of your vacation to sit and talk with us.
And have dinner with us,
have
and
dinner
talk to
with
us in the
us.
hot tub, and the
Yes.
pool.
As a matter of fact,
Yes.
we're going to turn this recorder off and we're going to adjourn to the hot tub, right?
I think that's the perfect thing to do on a
Yeah.
Thursday afternoon.
Yeah.
Yes.
So anything, Mrs. Jones?
No, just thank you, and
Thank you,
I'm
sir.
so glad we reconnected this year.
Yes. Hopefully we'll see you back again next year.
Okay, well, we hope you enjoyed what you just heard, our sexy conversation with Jay and Nathan. That was a fun afternoon. We got to just kind of sit in the air conditioning and unwind a little bit and just have a good conversation with them. They're so easy to talk to, as I'm sure you were able to hear.
And I have to set the record straight, because that though Nathan did most of the talking during that podcast or during that conversation, there's no doubt who is in charge of that relationship.
Absolutely.
And that's Jay.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And a lot of times she was telling him what to say.
Yeah,
so.
She's very soft-spoken, but when she says something, it's pretty profound.
And so they look different and they sound different, but when you look at them, their relationship is so dynamic and so solid, and she definitely is the boss.
Oh, yeah.
It's a typical lifestyle relationship, and that shines through no matter, the race, the ethnicity.
She has the look.
Yeah, she does. She does have the look. And I played basketball with her. I saw the look on the basketball court.
She's
too.
really competitive.
Yeah,
oh my
is.
gosh.
Yeah.
Good athlete.
Yeah. What a great couple. And, we've gotten a few emails lately from couples in the lifestyle who
literally from around the world.
Minorities,
Yeah.
different races, different ethnicities, and some people think that, or they say that, hey, you guys make this sound easy, but we're coming from a completely different place. And so, we hope that the conversation that we just had, and I'm not sure that we captured the spirit of Jay and Nathan in that conversation, but they're just such a joyful couple. They don't let things bother them, or if they do, they just kind of shrug it off. They have a great relationship. They have each other, and they just go forward and have fun.
Yes.
So, and that's typical of the people that we meet at Pearl.
Right. There's something about taking your clothes off that just kind of strips away all educational levels, income levels, ethnicities, cultures. Everybody has that commonality of having, a relationship with your spouse, and you're there to, deepen your relationship and just have some sexy fun. And sexy fun is sexy fun no matter, what country you live in.
And I think that's what makes Pearl unique, whether it's Riviera Maya or Pearl. You can go to house parties, you can go to clubs, you can go out on dates, you can go to Naughty in New Orleans, and you can go to takeovers. But there's something about desire, where people are just able to be people. And you're there for a number of days, and you can start to soak it in and relax and get to know people for who they are. And that really, in essence, to me, is what the lifestyle is all
So now
about.
what's that quote again? I'm putting you on the spot about if you've never...
Oh, you mean Nathan's quote?
Yeah. I think it's worth repeating.
If you've never been to Pearl, no...
To desire in general, yeah.
Do you know it or not?
Well, no, I don't.
Okay. If you've never been to desire, no explanation is possible. If you have been to desire, no explanation is necessary.
Amen.
Right. And
it's so true.
Yeah. And so for those of you, some of you have reached out to us and said, we have limited funds, or we have one lifestyle vacation. Should we go to NIN or should we go to Pearl or RM? And the answer is always going to be desire.
Yes.
So
there's just something about it. It's so weird because in one sense it's like so laid back, but on the other hand it's so intense.
Yeah.
I guess it's the opportunity, and when I say opportunity, it's the opportunity for me to do something like really crazy, sexy fun with you, and that fun may involve somebody else, and it may not. It may involve the bed in our room, or it may involve a jacuzzi bed or a pool bed, or a playroom. We don't know what it's going to involve, but I know something sexy is going to happen each day.
Yeah.
And it's not knowing how that's going to play out is the crazy part.
Right, and that's a little bit of a tease because in a couple of weeks we're going to release episode 28, and we're going to do a whole breakdown and lots of fun and lots of stories that we have to share.
And some lessons learned. Golly day, we keep learning stuff every single vacation.
Yeah, definitely.
And we had some super highs, and we didn't really have any lows, but we had some times where we just were like, okay.
We ran out of gas.
Yeah, we did. I think we were there one day too long.
Yeah, but we'll talk about that in a couple of weeks. So Jay and Nathan, you guys are awesome. Thank you very much for sitting down and talking with us, and mostly thank you for giving us permission to share your story and your experience with everyone who listens to We Got a Thing.
That's right.
So
and we're going to have to make sure our paths cross again at Desire one day.
Definitely.
That's for sure.
Yeah. Anything else, or should we cut out?
I think we need to cut out and save the rest of it for episode 28.
Okay. Well, you can follow us on Twitter at We Got a Thing. You can listen to our podcast on any podcatcher for We Got a Thing. Our website is wegotathing.com. You can email me at mrjones@wegotathing.com
or Mrs. Jones at wegotathing.com.
Yeah, you've been doing pretty good at answering your emails.
Kind of fun.
Right. So don't go far, because we will be back in a couple of weeks with a regular episode, and we'll talk about all of our sexy fun that we had at Desire Pearl 2016. So we are Mr. and Mrs. Jones, and We Got a Thing.
What's your thing?